We're only human. Of course, we're going to get sucked down rabbit holes. Our curiosity can get the best of us, as the saying goes. But maybe the saying should go, our curiosity can get the best for us. I'm a fan of Anne-Laure Le Cunff's writing. She's a neuroscientist and a psychologist who used to work for Google, and a recent newsletter of hers was titled Curiosity Snacks, which hit me as a great way of thinking about these times where we get distracted by something interesting. And also that all distractions are not created equal. If you're new here, welcome to Keep the Flow, the podcast that looks under the hood of the creative process. I'm Scott McLemore, a drummer and composer living way up north in Iceland. After 35 years as a professional musician and decades of experience in graphic design and writing, I decided to turn my fascination with creativity into a resource for the creatively inclined. But it's impossible to know what will lead to something valuable, or if hours will go by and we realize we've wasted our day reading nonsense about celebrities. So I was listening to the Creative Pep Talk podcast with Andy J. Pizza, and he had on illustrator Chris Piascik, who also was a recent guest of mine, but his interview was much better than mine. Anyway, they were talking about how wasting time is such a strange thing for a creative professional, especially for those of us who are neurodivergent or on the spectrum. We are constantly battling these distractions and trying to stay focused, while a lot of our best discoveries are made while wasting time. This is a little bit like gambling. We place a bet on a rabbit hole, and then when we come out the other side, we either won or lost. So then if we lost, that's when the guilt creeps in. What the heck is wrong with me? Right? And that feeling makes us want to avoid any and all rabbit holes in the future. But if we come out the other side feeling like we got something out of it, do we then look back and say to ourselves, that was more productive than I expected. I should really go down more rabbit holes more often? No, we don't say that or think that. We're too busy figuring out what to do with what we found. Simon Sinek had musician Jacob Collier on his podcast recently, and he said something that really stood out to me. He said, my approach to learning and practice was to kind of follow the thing that felt interesting and like it lit me up. Basically, he's saying that he only practiced what he was curious about. Our curiosity is something that we need to harness, especially for creative people. If we feel guilty and regret where our curiosity takes us most of the time, that's going to make us less creative. It makes us less willing to take chances, less willing to risk our precious work time. Because let's face it, it is a gamble. But what if we could increase the odds of winning? Anne-Laure makes the comparison to food with her Curiosity Snacks essay. Just like with snacking, there are various reasons for it. Are we actually hungry? Are we using it to avoid something? Or are we even consciously aware of what we're doing? Have you ever suddenly realized that you finished a bag of chips, but you don't really remember eating them? No? Yeah, me neither. There is an impulsive side to both snacking and curiosity, but we can take steps to get more control over them. If every time you walk into the pantry you see cookies and potato chips, you're much more likely to eat them. So just like with junk food, if there are distractions for you that you know are just going to waste your time, out of sight, out of mind. If your desk is covered with gossip magazines, you're probably going to be distracted by them at some point. And I'm sure you don't have gossip magazines all over your desk, but for the purposes of this analogy, we typically like to keep our workplace clean and free from distractions. We can apply the same logic to the digital world. If every time you open your phone, TikTok or Instagram is the first thing you see, it's pretty easy to impulsively tap those icons without even really thinking about it and binge on some stupid videos for an undeterminable amount of time. So short of deleting those apps, create friction points so that your phone is set up in a way that's less likely to distract you. Don't put them on the home screen. Do the same with your computer. Just like with food, there are healthy snacks and then there's what most of us eat. Anne-Laure suggests that we start thinking of our cravings as normal, and that not giving in to them is not necessarily the best solution. Rather, she sees a better alternative of curating our curiosity snacks and giving ourselves healthy options. So instead of gossip magazines on your desk, make sure you have interesting books and magazines around that you think could potentially have something useful. Instead of social media apps being the first thing you see on your devices, something like Kindle or Blinkist or DeepStash will send you down more productive rabbit holes. On both my iPhone and iPad, I set up my home screens so that I only have a few widgets visible, and common apps that I use are in a couple of folders, and anything else is in the app library. With a few taps, I can search for anything that I need, so it's not really inconvenient. But just that little bit of friction makes a huge difference to whether or not I descend into scrolling. Another thing I should mention, because honestly my biggest time suck is YouTube. The homepage is where the algorithm shoves stuff in my face that I'll probably like. It knows me well. I see new videos there from channels that I subscribe to, and then some random stuff that the algorithm wants me to try. But I don't see videos from all the channels I've subscribed to, just the ones most recently viewed. Amazingly, YouTube doesn't have an option to group subscriptions. However, you might not know that you can use an RSS reader, like Feedly, to subscribe to YouTube channels and then sort them by topic and give yourself a more curated rabbit hole. Another problem I have with YouTube is I open the homepage with a question about how to do something, and I immediately see something much more interesting. Pretty soon I can't remember what it was I was looking for. So I use a feature in Arc browser where I can search YouTube without opening it first. So I only have to look at the results of whatever I'm searching for. There are ways to accomplish this in other browsers, but I really like Arc. My rule of thumb is if I can search for something directly without going onto the website or opening the app, it's going to save me time and prevent me from being distracted. But sometimes being distracted is exactly what we need. I mean, there's a reason that companies like Apple and Google actually encourage their employees to take breaks and take walks and daydream. But you want to be distracted by the good stuff, the healthy curiosity snacks. So have books and thought-provoking apps accessible, but also if you know you're going to go on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, make sure you're following accounts that are going to give you a healthy snack. For instance, I follow Big Think on YouTube, and they always have a brief interview with some smart person who gives me something interesting to think about. Or I follow Ryan Holiday, who has little lessons from the Stoic philosophers. You can sign up for newsletters from people who are going to potentially enrich your life. Like this whole episode came from reading Anne-Laure's newsletter, which I came really close to deleting, but then the subject line grabbed me, and here we are. Wherever you find yourself wasting time and feeling bad about it, look at how you could set that up so that it would give you some benefit. Because we're all going to get distracted. We're all going to scroll at some point. We might as well make it as substantive as possible. You never know when being distracted could end up being the most productive thing you've done all day. This ties in nicely with an episode that I did about finding your way out of the creative roundabout, which you can click on here. Go ahead. It's right there. I'll catch you in the next episode. Until then, keep the flow.